Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I thought we would do a die custom made card. We haven't done one for ages, and of course who else would I go to but Sue Wilson, my beloved Sue Wilson dies. Now this time I wanted to do a little bit different on the video. Normally when I do my Sue Wilson die cutting videos, I will die cut a section, I'll put it together, and so you can see how that is constructed and it kind of makes sense. But it isn't really how I would make the card. What I would do is die cut everything, then I would start the construction process. So I wanted to do a sort of a more realistic version of the card making process, because I felt that the other way was slightly, although it perhaps made more sense visually when you're watching it, it was perhaps giving you a false impression of how I did the card. Okay, so we're starting out with a piece of coconut white cardstock. It doesn't particularly matter at the size of it at the moment, that's not going to matter as long as it's big enough to take the die, which is Sue Wilson Pacific Ocean background die. And as you can see, I've taken the outer filigree layer, then the middle layer, and then I've taken the inner layer. I actually don't need the inner layer, so if you're going to do this card later yourself, just save yourself the bother and don't put that inner layer in. You don't need it. At the time I thought I was going to need it, but I didn't, so you can just save yourself a bit of effort. Now it needs a couple of times running through. It's quite detailed, so go back and forth at least 2 or 3 times to make sure that you really cut through. So next I want to cut out some corners, and I just want to cut out the outside edge at this point because I want to have a layer behind the lacy layer, so I want the white to show through. So we're going to cut that just outer edge, and then we're going to take these tags, and I'm going to take this bottom tag, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take the outer layer and cut that out. Now these being a much simpler cut, you don't need to run these through a couple of times, just once would be sufficient, or if you're a little bit unsure, go back and forth, but you don't need to do that too many times. And then because these are corners, I obviously want 4 of them, so I cut a further 3 to make 4 in total, but only 1 tag. Next we're moving on to the Tahiti die set. And as with the other 2, I'm cutting just the outside edge because I'm making like a base layer. So I just literally want that outside edge at this point. So now we're moving on to the Aqua cardstock, and we're sticking with the Tahiti, and we're putting the outside edge because I still want that to be the same size, but I'm now adding the decorative element. Now this is the only piece I'm adding. I'm not adding the next section because I don't want an aperture. So then underneath on this same piece of card, but you can't see it unfortunately, I'm adding the tag, so I'm adding that outside edge, and then I'm grabbing the next bit, which is the decorative element, but then I am taking that inner piece so that I get an aperture on my tag. So you can see there I just popped that out, and now you can see there's actually an aperture in the center of my tag, whereas on this larger piece here you can see that because I didn't put that other piece in that went next in the dies, you can see that I've got a solid element in the center of my decorative piece here, and this will sit lovely on top of my white piece. So then I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to use outside edge of my corner and then the inner edge of my corner. But as before, clearly I have 4 corners, so I have to repeat this 4 times. But I thought it would be nice for this card to use an embossing folder. I don't use embossing folders enough, and this is a Sue Wilson embossing folder. It's A4, so I just put a piece of A4 coconut white in, and I'm using my platinum machine for this because it's big enough. So then you put your base plate down, you put your embossing folder with card inside, and then just 1 cutting plate on top. So you're not sandwiching it between 2 cutting plates, you're literally just doing the fat white base plate and then the embossing folder, then the 1 cutting plate. And this is what you create, a beautiful embossed piece of card. So next I want to stick my layers of die cutting together. So as you can see how I've got the white layer behind the beautiful die cut elegant filigree layer, and of the aqua colour. And for this I'm going to try using my Stick and Stay spray. I don't always care for spray adhesives, but they're such detailed dies that I just thought this might be a good option to try. So next we're cutting this background layer die into the right size. It doesn't come with an outside die edge because it deliberately lets you decide what size edging you want. I went for a 1/2 inch edge all the way around, and I thought that worked out really well. I then again used my spray adhesive. I stuck that down onto my Aqua piece of cardstock on the 2 sides. It was how I wanted it, and so therefore I only had to cut the other 2 sides. And overall I cut the Aqua mat approximately 1/8 of an inch bigger than the white. So then next we get our tag die here, and obviously I've stuck those 2 together as well, and I've taken a sentiment stamp and some alternate ink which matched the Aqua cardstock so lovely that it was just perfect, and I stamped that into the center of that tag. So next I'm cutting my embossed piece to size, and it actually ends up to be 10 inches by 7.5 inches, but this is a completely custom size card, and basically the sizing is being determined by the mats and layers of the die cut pieces that I'm doing, and I will make my own envelope to match. The next thing that I did was cut my Aqua cardstock. I had 2 A4 sheets that I cut to size to again fit the embossing layer to make my easy peasy card method card base. And again, what I'll do is on the blog post I will put a video to my easy peasy card method for any size cards, but you can see here for the front I just did again about 1/8 of an inch around, so it would have been approximately 10.25 by 7.75 for the front, and then I would have cut the back piece at approximately 10.25 by 8.25, and then scoring that at the 1/2 inch on that shorter 8.25 side to give you a card that was again 7.75, but with that extra flap which then attaches to the front of the card, so that you then have a back and a front that are the same and a perfect fit for your mats and layers that you've created with your dies. And as you can see, it's a very simple way of creating any size card that you want to create, and it looks terrific. It doesn't look any different. It really doesn't make a problem with the look of the card at all, and it just means that you can get any size card you want. So next we're adding our embossed layer to the front of the card, and for this you want to use a wet glue. Embossed layers really don't stay stuck very well if you don't use a wet glue, whether it's I've got Hunky Dory construction glue, which is really super strong, or just some sort of white glue will be fine. Any kind of wet glue will do the trick. So next we're taking our background die cut piece. I think the reason I'm calling it background is because that's the name of the die in that collection, and again I'm using my wet glue because I'm sticking straight onto the embossed layer. For this I want it to be flat because I am going to add some dimension, but there's already quite a lot going on with the embossing and the different layers anyway, so I don't want to add loads of foam layers to it, so I just want to be very careful as to where I add that dimension. Since we've already got some dimension with the embossing, I think the next layer would work really nicely just being flat onto the card. So again, the wet glue just gives me a little bit of movement time to make sure that I centralize it. So now we're going to be adding the height, and this is to the Tahiti die cut that we did and the corners, and I'm just adding some foam to all of those, just not too thick a foam, just a couple of mil, but just to add a little bit of height and dimension on those ones. And what you'll notice also on the corners here is that I'm not putting them absolutely in the corner of that background layer. I'm actually popping them out slightly from the corner. Again, just to add a bit of interest, a bit of just to also not to hide too much of that centerpiece. We left quite a wide border deliberately of the embossing anyway, so that these pieces could intrude, in inverted commas, into that area. Then next, taking our Tahiti die cut that we put the foam onto the back of already, I just adhered that to the center of my background layer, and you can see now why I said that the background layer didn't need that center die cut section. I think originally I'd planned on twisting that the other direction, so it might have shown a little of that other area, but I just changed my mind on it a little bit, so that's why I think originally I had cut that. And then finally, also on foam, I just added my sentiment tag. Now all of this foam is not very thick, so it's just giving a little bit of height, but actually each piece on its own is not so super high that it just looks crazy. And I think that all that dimension is really helpful, as it stops the different layers just kind of merging visually into each other. And then finally, I just added some of these Creative Expressions Dazzlers. This is from the blue collection, to the card, just a couple in the corners of the corner dies, and also a couple onto the center tag there. And I just use my Hunky Dory construction glue to stick it down because it's nice and strong. And they are a little bit bigger than average, the gems. They're sort of like lots of little gems onto one, so I just wanted to make sure that they were strongly stuck down so that they would stay stuck. And that is it done. As you can see on the inside of the card, I just added a little bit of white cardstock. I always like to add a little bit of something extra to the back when there are so many layers on the front. It just balances that weight. Those of you who have watched me regularly know that is something I like to do. But otherwise, we are finished. That is the card finished, and it was so nice to do a die cut card again. I haven't done one for ages, and I of course am super excited to be using some Sue Wilson. I know this is an older set from Sue, but I don't think we've used it on videos at all, so I thought it would be really nice to use it and see what it came out like, and I think it looked really nice. It was actually a card that I gave to my mum for Mother's Day, so it was actually filmed quite some time ago, but just things, as you know, have been happening, so just one thing and another, and I just haven't got to post it. So I hope you like it as much as Mum did, and I hope you like it as much as I do. And as always, do go on across to the blog post to see a ton of photos, so you'll get to see loads of close-ups, and of course the link to that video for the easy peasy card, and most importantly a list of all the products used with links, because obviously there was a lot of different things here and a lot of different dyes and cardstocks and all sorts, so that will make it a lot easier for you to know exactly what I used. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now. Bye.